Okay, and then let's hide the floating control panels. Zoom that one a little bit up there. There. And we'll go full screen mode. Okay, so we tried our best so you guys can see. This is the way we are. Okay, so welcome to this menopause workshop. So this is something that's been really been pushed on my heart, that I need to speak to women, and we need to start speaking about menopause and everything that happens to us during this period, because I think it's something that we think we just need to suffer through, and we really don't need to. There's a lot of stuff that we can do. If you are still in the early stages of perimenopause, there's a lot that you can do to prevent the stuff that that are older has already gone through. So this is the whole purpose of today. And then next week we'll follow up if you want to join for another course on how we can talk about sleeping and what is reverse dieting. So you all know me, my name is Susa, and I call myself the true menopause survivor. So I had the menopause. I definitely saw some pictures of myself and decided that it's time to address this, and I hopefully try to do it. So let's talk about the python in the room. So this is that mid-waist belly fat that just appears overnight. So you go to bed, get up the next morning, and you've earned another snake around your mid-waist. And who can relate to this? It literally feels like it's there overnight. It's like one day you find it, the next day you're not. I mean, like, definitely Angela and I had this conversation on Monday. It was literally for her like in an aspect of 2 weeks. It went from, oh my God, what happened to me, to this. So I want to tell you and share with you my yellow skirt story. So I've told the story many times, but I do think that makes it relatable to everybody. I had this massive, beautiful yellow skirt. Loved wearing the skirt. The skirt empowered me. I felt great when I had it on. I had it on the week before. The sunshine morning called for my yellow skirt, and I took it on. I took it out of my closet, wanted to put it on, and I couldn't even fasten the buttons. And that's when I realized that this mid-waist spread is real, like that it really happens to you. It just happens overnight. So why does this happen? So the first thing I want to tell you is this is natural. This is not something that you're doing wrong. It's not something that you ate too much or you did this. This is a natural weight gain that happens. This weight gain usually gets worse on the onset of menopause. So let's just step back. So for some of you that have done the introductory course, you remember that we break the menopause cycle into perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. So menopause is actually just a moment in time. It's once you have not had your periods for 12 months, that day when that occurs, that is when you are actually in menopause. And the next day you are postmenopause. So although we talk about menopause, that I'm going through menopause, you're actually postmenopause. So you're either perimenopause starting late 30s, early 40s onset, 12 months, no period, and then you postmenopause. So most of the symptoms that we have, the night sweats, all of that, will start slowly occurring late 30s, early 40s, you'll start experience these symptoms. So if you are in your late 30s, early 40s like Ollie, this is actually the best time to address all this. And you can hopefully try and prevent most of this weight gain by the time you hit postmenopause.
Guys, I'm the case study.
Yeah.
Watch.
She saw all my crying and she decided. Yeah. She saw all.
Speak to me in 10 years
Yeah.
from now. We'll start taking progress photos year on year.
She saw all my crying on the couch and decided, I'm out. I'm not doing this shit. Like, seriously. Okay. So the first thing we need to realize is, actually, it's so sad to think about it. You go through puberty, you do all these things, and immediately when you hit going into your late 20s, early 30s, your estrogen and progesterone is already declining. It's already going down. Okay. So this decrease in these hormones trigger a metabolic change in your body. And the biggest metabolic change that happens is the loss of muscle tone. And unfortunately, it's this vicious cycle. So you're going through these menopause symptoms of hot flashes, night sweats, low energy, you're not sleeping well. your energy is decreasing, so you don't want to work out so much more, and you just feel tired, you don't want to walk, and everything just slows down. And that's why when you talk about your metabolism slows down, it's actually more a fact that you're not burning as much calories as what you used to, because you don't have the muscle tone, you're not doing the right stuff to gain that muscle tone and keep that muscle tone at a certain level. So because you have a decrease in muscle mass, the calorie burn goes down. So unfortunately, what happens is this loss in muscle tone is replaced by fatty deposits. So as the muscle becomes smaller, that space gets filled by fat. And unfortunately, the next thing is the place where you lose the most muscle tone when you go on the onset of menopause is your waist, is your abdominal area. So where all this fat goes? Straight to that midsection, because that's where it's making room for it. So another thing that we need to think about is our genetics, because if your mother or grandmother was prone to gaining belly fat, you will be prone to gaining belly fat as well. Genetics plays a massive role. If your mother or grandmother did not have it, you have a good chance of not skipping it, but it won't be such a huge impact in your life. But I also want to say, this doesn't mean that you can throw in the towel and just go like, I'm out. I'm drinking and eating whatever I want because I'm anyway in a bad position. If you know your genetics is like that, you can actually set yourself up for even more to be more successful, because you know that you need to be aware of it. So will this weight gain ever stop? At least finally, after all of that, we have some great news. It will stop. So at onset, it will gain the most. And then as your symptoms start tapering out, and most of you that's gone through menopause knows that your symptoms become more manageable. So you will have extreme light sweats and hot flashes, and it sort of will stabilize, and you'll have it occasionally depending on your diet or stress levels or whatever. And that's basically when the weight actually stabilizes, and that's where it will stay if you don't do anything about it. So once again, if you are happy where you are, by all means, just remember this is where it will stay. And if you just keep eating a balanced diet, this is where you will stay. You probably won't go up in size anymore. You'll just stay there. So that's at least some good news. So the weight will stabilize post-menopause. That's good news. So what is the first thing you do when you start gaining weight? What do you do, Sam? Stop eating. What do you do, Kim?
I start exercising.
Exactly. See, I knew exactly which two I need to ask. So where's the cardio junkies? See? I knew I could pick on Kim. So the first thing we do is we decrease our calories. Immediately, we go on the internet and we search, and we go into MyFitnessPal, and they set us up for what? 1,200 calories. Guaranteed. You go into MyFitnessPal, set your portfolio in, and they will set your calories at 1,200 calories. Guaranteed. Even Chronometer, which I think is a better app than MyFitnessPal, will set you up for maybe 1,400. Realistically, you need more than that just to lie in bed and sleep. Remember that. Okay. What's the next thing we do? We start running more. Instead of running 5Ks, I'm going to freaking run 10Ks now. Instead of doing a 30-20 interval in cardio, I'm going to do a 40-20, and I'm going to do 10 rounds. I'm just going to blast out that cardio. I'm just going to do as much as I can, because that's how I'm going to lose this weight. No, it doesn't work that way anymore. This might have worked when you were 35, 45. It's so sad.
30 it worked.
30 it worked, man. You do it for a week and you're back in that yellow skirt. Easy. Now it doesn't work that way anymore. We need to rethink this whole game of how we're going to lose this belly fat. How are we going to lose this? I don't want to talk about actually weight. I want to talk about body fat. How are we going to lose this body fat? Okay. So what should we do? What should be done? The first thing is, do not decrease your calories. And we're going to talk about this. Do not decrease your calories. We're going to
having way too many, like me.
Well, it depends on if you're around 5,000, I would say decrease calories. But you're not there. And you have to increase your protein. We have to increase our fiber. We need to lift heavy. And we do have place for cardio. We're just going to do a different form of cardio called sit training. So if you don't remember anything from today, please remember these points. If you go home today, remember, do not decrease my calories, increase my protein, increase my fiber intake, lift heavy, and sit training. I'm gonna go through everything now. Yeah, it's not shit training. Yeah, when you do it, when you are doing it, you will feel like it's shit training, but it's sit training. No, it's not the increase of fiber that's going to go. No. Okay, so let's talk about protein and fiber. So who thinks their protein is on par? Okay.
I am.
I know she is because she's logging and I'm seeing her log every night. So she is hitting that. So when we talk about protein, we're looking at 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram, or 0.73 to 1 grams of protein per pound. So on average, you're looking at least to 100 to 135 grams of protein a day. To put this into perspective, a chicken breast, the size of the palm of your hand, that's about 100 grams. It will give you about 20 grams of protein. You're looking at 5 chicken breasts to hit that 100 grams a day. It's a lot. You never ever want to be under 100 grams. 100 grams is, I personally think 135 grams is a good average. Once you've stopped crying and blaming Ollie for putting you on it, you can actually hit 135 grams quite easy. It is very doable. I promise you that. Once you are into it and you start logging and you look at stuff, you're like, oh, it's actually very doable.
Can I just say one thing? Like, seriously, supplementation is okay.
Yeah, I was gonna,
I had to have this. Oh, were you gonna?
Yeah. So what Ollie's saying is true. If you need to supplement with a protein shake during the day or a protein bar, it is okay. It's fine. So you can also supplement with collagen, but you have to remember collagen is not a whole protein. It doesn't consist of all 9 amino acids. So you need to add food to make it a full protein to get to all 9.
So like having 2 protein shakes included is okay?
Yeah, I try not to go more than one.
Okay.
And I try and stay away over weekends when I have more time to prepare my food to not have protein shakes.
Okay.
So yes, I do supplement. Some days I'll have a protein shake and a protein bar, or sometimes I will have one and a half, depending on where I am in the day. But seriously, it's if you can tolerate it, I think it's fine. I can't tolerate that much whey protein, so that's why I try not to do too much of it.
And you can, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not the worst processed food you can eat.
Yeah.
That's worst thing.
Yeah.
That's what I do some days.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, and I think when you do your protein powder, just read the ingredients and make sure that it's a whey isolate, that you're doing a good source of protein, like the sugar contents. Like you get the M&M and the O. Henry's protein powder now. Yeah. So, okay, and then let's talk about fiber. So fiber, we're looking at 25 grams of fiber a day. I have to say that is my hardest one to hit. It is really not easy unless you go raspberry picking like Ollie, and then you have 69 grams of fiber at the end of the day. And then she was doing sit rate. So I will discuss with you later, bit, giving you some list of foods that are high in fiber. But it's usually your legumes are high in fiber, and your green vegetables will give you good fiber. So that's the first 2. Okay, now we're going to talk about the training. So you're looking at 2 to 3 strength training sessions per week. So if you've not been strength training, start with 1. If you are, stay with 2. If you have time, up it to 3. So that is where you are. 2 is actually not bad. 2 strength trainings a week is good. 3 would be better. So instead of doing your cardio, so I'm going to explain to you what SIT training is. SIT is sprint interval training. So instead of doing a 30-40, working for 40, resting for 30, 20, or 10, you actually work. So you can do SIT training, any form of HIIT training, where you do an interval of 30 and 10, or 30-30, or 30 with a longer rest. So anything that pushes your heart rate extremely high up, and then it gives you a chance to get down. I've done research. I had big debate with my other boss yesterday because she doesn't agree with me, and I gave her the study, but I'm going to do that because I think I'm going to listen to that study. So they've done a study and they've come to a hit. Karen's been doing it with me, where you work for 8 seconds, you rest for 12. You do that for 20 minutes. So it's actually easy when you run because you can incorporate it into your runs. That's actually the easiest part. If you are in the studio, it's a little bit hard to do it. I've done ropes and running on the spot and broad jumps because the goal is to get your heart rate at 85% of your maximum. So we calculate maximum by taking 220 minus your age, multiply by 85%. So for me, it's 137. So it's keeping my heart rate up. So this is where SID differs from normal HIIT. With normal HIIT, you give a lot of time to get the heart rate to go down. With this study, what they did is they didn't give the participants a lot of time to get the heart rates down. So the conclusion of the study was any form of HIIT made a difference, especially on the abdominal fat area. So pushing that heart rate up, bringing it down, pushing it up. They all had an increase in lean muscle mass. They all had a decrease in the fatty tissues around the abdominal. But the core group that did the 8-12 split had the biggest increase, like significant. Stationary, yeah, you can do stationary biking at home. For you that walk, you can maybe get a hill, 8 seconds up the hill, go down for 12. 8 seconds up the hill. I mean, you can just do it in front of your house. Stairs. So anything, 8 seconds of working, 12 seconds of resting. So please do not start with 20 minutes. Work your way up. Especially with after a run. Like I run only 5Ks, then I try and do the last 20 minutes and my legs are done. I think I've been able to get to 10 minutes. Okay. When I'm in the studio, I get to 20 minutes, but it's extremely boring. Like seriously, triple for 20 minutes. But I'm now in week 3 or 4.
So you go for a run and then the last bit you do that.
Yeah, it depends on how, like, if you're only going to do a 20-minute run, just do it the entire run.
Yeah.
Warm up, do a 5-minute warm up and then do it.
Yeah.
If you're going to run further and you're not training for anything specific, I'll do it at the end. Like start off with 5 minutes, work up to 7, 8, just like you would in a normal run.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just do 20 minutes. Like I just do it 5-minute warm-up.
Yeah.
And then I just
For 20 minutes, you do 8, 12, 8, 12.
Yeah.
I could do that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. If I can do it, you can do it. Okay, so everybody's got the formula. 220 minus your age, multiply by 85%. That's more or less where you want to be. Okay, let's talk about another elephant little python in the room. It's insulin resistance. So this is the new big topic. Everybody that can't lose weight, either is insulin resistant or got PCOS. What's that other one? Yeah. Yeah. Let me tell you, you don't. Okay. Yes, you do become insulin resistant as your metabolic changes happens because of the decrease in your hormones. If you are experience any symptoms of insulin resistance, I mean like severe symptoms, extreme. Her son is a type 1 diabetic. So if you have extreme thirst, very tired, you sleep a lot, please consult with your doctor. Then you have a bigger problem than just onset menopause insulin resistance. Okay. So what happens is because our hormones are declining, our metabolic adaptations are happening. One of the things is it's harder for our body to process this insulin. So what is insulin? Insulin, so first of all, let's start. Everybody, to have a spike in insulin is normal. So if you eat, your insulin will go up. Doesn't matter what you eat. Sometimes your insulin will spike higher, sometimes it will spike a little bit less. It depends on what you're eating. But everybody will have a spike in insulin. Insulin is a hormone that your body produces to help the carbohydrates that becomes glucose, sugar, to be absorbed by the cells, where it will be stored to be used for energy later on. If you have too much insulin, the insulin can't go anywhere, and that's when you become insulin resistant. So there's too much glucose and stuff going on, and then that's when the insulin isn't working the way it should work. So The good news is it's actually very easy to fix if you think you are insulin resistant. So first of all, I'm going to talk about intermittent fasting, and this is not intermittent fasting when I tell you what you're going to do. You are going to have a period. So first of all, you have to look at the quality of your carbohydrate. Okay, so this is not the time to be vegging out on brownies and bagels. This is the time to be vegging out on those good quality foods that we were talking about. Oats, quinoa, raspberries, blueberries, made a list here of a few. Oh, buckwheat. Buckwheat is I say so. I love buckwheat. I cook buckwheat.
You're talking like those buckwheat.
No, buckwheat is like it's a grain, and you cook it like you would
Like a
cook
rice
quinoa,
almost.
like a rice almost.
Quinoa, rice, and
Yeah.
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 A lot of
Yeah.
a lot of information.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, it's just a nutty tasty, and then you can get porridge out of it. You
Yeah.
can use it as a base with your
Yes.
part, but it's grain and it's a seed instead of a grass. So a lot of people can be quite sensitive to grasses, like wheat and oats and whatever, right? But buckwheat is actually a seed,
Yeah.
and it's high protein one too. So.
a nice dish to make is you cook the buckwheat and then you stir fry it with black beans and onions and garlic. It's actually not bad at all. My Russian friend taught me. See how much I've learned from Ollie? She's actually useful. Okay, so we're looking at that good quality of carbohydrates. If you are taking good quality carbohydrates, your fiber intake will automatically go up. So the fiber intake is what slows down this process of spiking the insulin. Because what happens is if you eat carbohydrates like bagels and brownies, your insulin will spike quite high and will drop quite high. And your goal is actually to stay steady, to have those spikes, but the spikes stay there. Because if you go up very high, you'll drop that you get at 4 o'clock is probably part of that because you've not been eating enough protein and fiber during the day. Okay. So if you have a 3-hour window between meals, so I have my breakfast, and I'm going to talk about how we should put this breakfast together. I'm going to have my breakfast, then I'm going to wait 3 hours before I have my next meal. And then wait 3 hours before I have my next meal. So it's very important when you have those meals that it should be proper meals. It can't just be a quick rice cake with a slash of peanut butter on it. It needs to be a good quality meal. We'll talk about it. And then the exercise, of course, weight training. We're back to weight training, lifting. That's our big thing, protein and weightlifting. If you don't remember anything, remember that. And then plyometrics. The plyometrics is an explosive exercise. Yes, I hear you. Your knees are sore. Yep, I heard you. But we also do explosive when we do ropes, when we do triple extensions, when we do kettlebell swings, when we do medicine ball slams. So you don't necessarily have to jump. So another good thing about plyometrics, not just that it regulates insulin resistance, it's also good for bone density. So what's the first thing we do when we start getting sore knees? We stop doing explosive work because everything hurts. But just remember, explosive work doesn't necessarily mean that you need to lift off from the ground. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the other big thing in the intermittent fasting. So for everybody who has husbands, this is the best thing your husband can do. Intermittent fasting. Seriously. Like for men, intermittent fasting is the goal. If your husband is overweight and he wants to lose some weight, intermittent fasting is the way to go. Men does very well with intermittent fasting. Their bodies adapt to it. And the problem was that all this research was done on men. So women just started doing intermittent fasting, not realizing that there was no research on women. So when they finally realized that they need to do some research on women, they're like, oh my gosh, women should actually not be doing intermittent fasting. Because we're back to that estrogen, progesterone, that hormone balancing that are going down. So because we don't have that hormones to help us to manage stress, our bodies, women's bodies, are designed to preserve energy because we have to bear children, we have to run after the kids, we have to do a multiply of stuff. We are geared to have energy. So if we don't give our bodies food, we will go into stress. So now we don't have the estrogen to help with the cortisol production. Now we're putting more stress on our bodies by not eating and training with no food in our stomachs. And I'm not talking that you have to have this massive breakfast. It's just breaking that fast. And all of that. So we're just putting more stress on our bodies, and putting more stress on our bodies, we become more insulin sensitive. We slow down our thyroid function, and we risk the increase of cortisol. And you know what happens with cortisol? It just sits at one place. And I mean, like, look at our lifestyles. We're already under stress just in normal circumstances. And it's normal for us to be a little bit stressed, to have stress in our work and whatever. But now we're already in a disadvantage, and now we put more stress on our bodies that we don't need. So all I can say is it's really not the best option for you. If you want to try it and see how it works, I'm not gonna debunk you. I just think that you have to look at the research. When I look at the research, I look at everything Dr. Stacey Sims says. I don't agree with 2 things that she says, but for the rest is she's got 2 doctor's degrees in periods and menopause. So I think she knows a little bit what she's saying. Okay. So what should we do instead of intermittent fasting? We want to look at a plant-based eating with high protein intake. When I say plant-based, I'm not saying become a vegetarian. That's not what I'm saying. You want to think when you eat, you want to think that you're eating from a plant and not out of a plant. Does it make sense? So when I talk about a plant, I mean like process coming out of the factory. So anything that comes from the trees and the earth and whatever is your go-to, because it will be a good quality carbohydrate. It will be mostly high in fiber. It will be digested by your microgut much better than processed food. So, and then of course, focusing on that protein intake. So let's talk about that protein intake. Your goal is to eat at least 30 grams of protein per meal. If you can have the biggest bulk of your protein before dinner, you will not have those carbohydrate cravings at night for that late night snacks. So you're looking at, so if you want to do the 3-hour interval to see if you are insulin resistant, or you want to just make sure that you're not, you can do your 30 grams of protein in the morning with your quality carbohydrates, wait your 3-hour window out, and then eat another meal for 30 grams. So when you get to supper, so if your goal is 135 grams of protein, when you get to supper, you should be at least at 100 grams already for the day. Do not leave 135 grams for that evening, because you will not be able to eat it all. 30 grams of protein per day. Per meal.
Per meal, yeah. Chicken breast to just have with per meal.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you cook a meal for a family, it sometimes doesn't have that much in it, right?
Yeah.
So I just actually cook just chicken breast so that I can eat it as extra.
I do the same. I buy the bulk chicken breast. I chop it up in little blocks. I stir fry it and I keep it in a container in my fridge. That's my go-to. And I buy the tuna and olive oil. That's my absolute go-to, the clover leaf tuna and olive oil. It's like stacked in my cupboards in my pantry.
Best friend.
Shrimp is definitely your best friend. Yeah. Shrimp by far, because there's basically no fat in the shrimp. So if your fat is too low, we'll talk about that just now as well. Okay. So protein, 30 grams at least with each meal. You want to have the bulk of your protein before supper. So when you get to supper, there should be about 30 grams left for you for the day. If you're doing the 3-hour window, it's sometimes difficult because you have to eat quite a bit because you're not snacking. You're not going to do that protein snack in between. I've still managed to get to it.
So do you do 3 meals a day or 4 meals a day?
I do 3 meals.
Oh, actually 3 meals.
3 meals.
So I was thinking you could break it up depending on how early and how late you're starting.
Definitely.
You could break up your food into 4 meals in 3 hours.
No, actually, I do 4 because I do the protein shake. So I eat in my breakfast around 7 when I'm done working out. Then I eat when I get home around 11. And then I do a protein shake before I come back to work at 4 o'clock. And then I eat supper. So I actually basically do 4 meals. Yeah. That's how I get to my 135 grams. Okay. And the reason why we eat so high protein is because of this muscle mass that we're losing. So your whole body is made up basically of protein. So the more muscle mass you have, the more calories you will burn. And if you are starting to decline on muscle mass, you need to increase your protein because your protein will help you to protect, to not lose your muscle tone, your muscle mass. Does that make sense? The other good thing about having good muscle mass and having high protein intake, it takes more effort for your body to burn the protein, to process the protein. So you actually have like a thermal effect from the protein. So say, for instance, you eat 200 calories worth of protein, you'll probably only take up, just don't quote numbers, you only probably take up 180 calories of that, because 20 calories of that will be used by your body to actually process the protein, where carbohydrates and fats doesn't use any energy to be digested.
Unless it's fiber.
Unless it's fiber, yeah.
You get quite a big metabolic benefit out of eating not only protein, but a ton of fiber.
Fiber,
because
yeah.
fiber obviously feeds the bacteria in your
Yeah.
gut. So a lot of that energy, it gets used up by bacteria as opposed to by your body. So you can, by upping both your fiber and your protein, you can create yourself a nice calorie buffer throughout the day. So you can actually eat more food for less calories.
Yeah. And that's all, we're all about eating more food and
For less calories.
For less calories. Okay, so that's why we need the protein. Carbohydrates, you know, that's what converts into glucose. That's what gives you energy. That's why you can't go onto these diets where they take carbohydrates totally out. Keto, for instance. You need that glucose. Your brain physically needs it. The first thing, the interesting thing is when I was reading all this research is the first thing that happens when you eat, when you have carbohydrates, the first glucose that your body produces from that will go straight to your brain for brain function. So you can imagine if you take that away, we're just going to be dumb, man. So balance. It's all about balance. Protein, carbohydrates, and fats. So the other reason why we don't take fats out of our diet, sorry, because omega-3, especially omega-3, helps us with menopausal symptoms. So if you take your fats out of your diet and you don't have the estrogen, excuse me, your body is actually you're just going to have more symptoms. So I always say you don't want to have less than 50 grams of fat a day. So we're looking at 135 grams of protein and not less than 50 grams of fat. Your fats can be way higher. If you're really struggling to lose weight, sometimes you need to up your fats. And taking your fats up will make the difference. So we out of this era of, and most of us grew up in this low fat, low carbohydrate era. It's not like that anymore. We're looking at a balance. So I always say, eat your high protein and sprinkle the rest of your calories with carbohydrates and fats. If you are not busy with body recomp or really want to go into a bodybuilding competition, that balance between carbohydrates and fats can just be equal. You don't need to be like exact. If you are like literally want to lose the last 5 pounds or the last 10 pounds, or you want to recomp and want to have a 6-pack, that's when like really zooming in and making sure that you only hit a certain target will make a big difference. But calories and protein is the two things that you need to hit every day.
So what kind of fat would you recommend?
So when you look at fat, you're thinking about your nuts, your avocados, your olive oils. So Mediterranean style eating is what we're looking at. Your fats that comes from your fish. So trying to incorporate fish twice a week, prawns and salmon, or prawns and cod, whatever you can. You've got the salmon. You've got no excuse not to be
Just
stocking.
came home last week.
Yeah, with your good omega. Okay.
The
Seeds,
too,
your
right?
seeds too.
So I would even go, flax is fantastic.
Yeah.
Hemp, chia, if you like chia,
Yeah.
just make sure you pre-soak it. I tried it in my salad once. I was like, oh, let me sprinkle some chia seeds in my salad. The crunchiest things. And they just get stuck in your teeth.
Yeah.
So don't do that.
I from my smoothie, yeah.
I often do, like if I do salads, I'll just sprinkle pumpkin or hemp or sunflower seeds into the salad.
Yeah.
Adds a nice dimension. And
Yeah. So the only thing with the seeds and the nuts is just watch your calories. because they are the seeds not so much, but definitely the nuts are very high in calories. So so when you go and you buy a nut, read, because obviously cashew nuts have more calories than walnuts and almonds. So just go and read your labels. Read your labels. And
One more thing on protein, and that's, I think, actually what probably changed my perspective, not from, you know, how when we say, well, I just eat more protein, and everybody's like, whatever, am I stuffing myself? Like, why am I doing this? But then, so your muscle, right, not only for body composition, but it's actually storage of amino acids in your body. Like, so when we have your liver stores, your muscle also stores glycogen for energy, and then your adipose tissue stores fat, again, for future energy. So, but muscle in itself is basically your storage of amino acid. It's your amino acid pool, and your body uses amino acids not just for to repair muscle and to recover, but it also uses for all the bodily functions, right? And it works really great in regulating your nervous system and all sorts of crap. So when we get sick, right, and let's say for whatever reason you're not able to consume enough protein, right? Like, where do you think your body is going to pull the amino acids from? Is from your muscle tissue.
Yeah.
So the more you maintain your muscle mass, right, especially as we get older, right? Like, that's where, and you know how when we get older, we also just don't eat as much. So if you can build,
I don't agree.
I don't agree.
No, so we're just being.
I'm talking we're 80, right?
No.
Ladies, you're not even old. I'm talking when we're going, because everything starts working in reverse, right? Like, so you need to make sure that you have enough muscle mass and kind of in the habit of consuming enough protein, because I'm always like, God forbid you get sick and you need something to fall back on, and your muscle tissue is that thing that I can't remember the study, but they've actually done study on sedentary people who did nothing. They overfed them. I mean, I'm not talking they stuffed them with protein, but they gave them more protein than they needed to. And in that sedentary period, they actually did not lose their muscle mass. They were able to maintain it.
Wow.
So just throwing it out there, you know, when you're sitting there and you're thinking, shit, I just can't get that protein in, just remember why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Not just for aesthetics.
And a good point what Ollie said, you know how we go on holiday now for 2 weeks and you don't strength train.
Right.
If you keep your protein levels up, the gains that you've made in the gym is not going to be lost in those 2 weeks. You know, just make sure that you're getting your protein in.
You might lose a bit of strength, but
But,
that comes
yeah.
back instantly, right? Because
Yeah.
your overall body
Yeah.
composition will remain.
Okay, so we've spoken about protein, how much, how to incorporate it. We talked about our fats. We talked about our carbohydrates. So let's talk about calories. What type of calories are we looking at? Because the first thing I told you is do not decrease your calories. So what are we looking at? So if you want to lose some body fat, you're looking at your goal weight. And let's just be realistic about this goal weight. This is not the weight that you weighed when you're 15, 14 years old. Okay. This is where a weight where you're comfortable. Yeah, why not? Why not? I want to get into my pom-pom dress, man. So I always think about it this way. So for instance, you have a lot of weight to lose. Just do it in small increments of 10 pounds. So if you're weighing now 180, make your goal 170. So calculate your calories at 170 pounds. And you do that by multiplying by 11. Okay, so if your goal is just body fat loss, you don't want to build muscle, you're looking at multiply by 11. So you want a very small deficit. So in the old days, we used to do a 500 calorie deficit. I don't know if you guys that's been into dieting for a long time. It used to be a 500 calorie deficit. Now, these days, we're looking at 100 to 300 deficit. So you want that deficit to be extremely small so your body don't adapt to it. You don't want metabolic adaptation to this low calories and your body going like, yeah, I can function on this. So you want your body to be fueled properly all the time. You want to have the furnace burning the whole time. You don't want stages where there's not enough. If you want to build muscle, you're actually looking at times 12 times 13 times that goal body weight. So there's ways to taper out of that higher calories as well once you've reached your muscle.
Your body weight times 12 times 13.
Yeah, no, it's or 12 or 13.
12 or 13,
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
No. 55,000 calories later.
And I can't understand what I'm not.
Running down the street.
Told me.
Yeah, so it's 11. It's just body fat loss you're looking at, or it is 12 or 13 when you're looking at muscle. Okay.
Your goal weight times 14 or 15
Yeah.
or your current weight, if you're like
Really?
super active, right?
Yeah.
And then you adjust on the basis of that.
So that is where you will start. And from there you will, and as long as you are losing, you can stay there. The moment you plateau, and remember, a true plateau is when you haven't lost weight for at least 6 weeks. It's not a week. Yeah, that's not a plateau. That's when we start playing around with the numbers a little bit more. Okay. So let's quickly talk about the weight loss. The weight loss is going to look like this. I don't think she can see me. Up, down, up, down. It's not going to be like this at all.
Good, that I'm right on track.
Yeah, you see, you're right on track. If you look at the graph at the end of the day, it will be like this. But the graph itself is going to be zigzag. Like you can literally, like Asker this morning, you can literally weigh 75 kilograms this morning. Tomorrow morning, because I'm going to go out to her house tonight. So tomorrow morning, I know I'm going to weigh probably about 76, 77, because I might have a drink, I might have some dessert. I'm not going to go over my calories. I'm not going to pick myself out tonight. But just that change, that fluctuation is going to push that weight up. But you will see over time, and listen to what I'm saying, over time. We're not talking about 6 weeks. We're not talking about 3 months. We're talking about a period of time for that weight to come down, to find a new threshold where it's comfortable. Because your body gets to a point, it's like, I like 75. That's where I want to stay. I'll fight you with everything I have because I want you to weigh 75 kilograms. So you have to fight that. And finally, you go to 74.5, and there you will stay. We'll go like this, but the bottom line will be about 74. And then finally, you'll go a little bit down. But your body will fight you every inch of the way because it has to preserve itself. So if you are okay with the scale, it took me a long time to be okay with the scale, is to weigh yourself every day, because that's when you can actually start seeing the fluctuations. You can actually see what influences you. I know now, like smoked salmon is high in sodium. If I have smoked salmon, or you have Chinese food or any Asian food very high in sodium, your weight will be up the next day. So I don't stress about it anymore. I know exactly why my weight is up. Why is my pants feeling a little bit because I had Chinese food or I had smoked salmon, and you can go and look at your sodium and you can immediately see it was high. Even if you eat too much fiber, you might feel a little bit bloaty. You know, if your fiber intake, if you're not used to this high fiber intake, you might feel a little bit bloaty.
Even if it depends how you sleep. If I don't sleep good, forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't want you to be distorted when you get on the scale. Always remember, the scale is just an instrument that measures gravity. It doesn't define you. It's not who you are. Your pants, on the other hand. Okay, so that's it. That's my whole mouthful. Now you can ask questions. Any questions? You can definitely take a supplement, yeah. If you're struggling to get your fibers where it should be, you can definitely take metamucil, or metamucil actually makes the gummies now as well. They're actually quite high in fiber, one of those gummies. All of that will definitely make a difference. Yeah. The best way is to lock your food for a bit. To go into to set yourself up in an app, and we can help you to set yourself up in an app that works well for you, and to lock your food. Once you've locked your food for about 4 to 6 weeks, you have a good idea about, because we tend to eat the same foods. We tend to eat the same amount of food, and you start to learn, like, I'm now at a stage, if I take a piece of steak and I weigh it, I'm usually within range. Like, say, for instance, I wanted 100 grams of steak, and I like, okay, that should be 100 grams. I'm usually either a little bit under or a little bit over or smack on. So over time, you learn these portions, and we can share with you how to, like, portions is, this is usually 100 grams. This is a tablespoon. That is a teaspoon. And this is a portion of carbs. So if you in a restaurant or anything, and you think about it. And always remember, when you log, you want to weigh your food and you want to log as precise as you can be. But if it's not 100%, it's not the end of the world, because it's, once again, it's just a tool for you to make sure that you're moving in the right direction. If you really plateau and there's no progress at all, that's when we need to go like, okay, now we need to be precise. Let's make sure that we hit those numbers 100%, just to get that body out of that comfort zone for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. Chronometer, CRONO meter, chronometer. And you can come and we'll set you up your protein and your calories and everything for you. Anybody wants us to do it for them, we're more than welcome. Okay, if anybody wants to come back next week, we're going to talk about sleep, why we don't sleep, and what can we do about it? And can we actually do something about it? And what is reverse diet? So if you've been in a deficit for a very long time, or your body has hit a plateau, sometimes you need to teach your body to eat again, and we'll show you how to do that. Any other questions? Everybody good?
Awesome.
Did you learn something?
Yes, a lot.
Okay. Eat your protein, lift heavy shit. As easy as that.
Yeah, that's
Basically, summary.
I need a new one, but there's a Vitamix, there's all different ones.
Vitamix is really.
That's just.
Yeah, so I just have a KitchenAid one, which is fine, but you've got the Vitamix?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use the Ninja.
You've got a-
That's also quite nice.
Yeah.
From if you don't want the price range, because Vitamix is more.
Yeah.
But the Ninja at Costco is amazing.
I was there the other day. They
Yeah.
were both like